Hello and welcome back to Operations with Void. This week we will return to our usual program of how to play ops. Now this week we will not be focusing on how to get lots of damage. Instead we will be focusing on team play. In fact, what we're doing might actually work well with the upcoming support carriers that are coming out. So we're going to be using Shokaku and we're going to be playing in Hermes. Now the support carriers and Burn probably do this better because with Hermes as a carrier, your job isn't so much to do damage but to take out planes. So we'll be showing how to focus on that job while we showcase the operation. So without any I guess here we can see what I got. So carriers is the one of the few things where you can select something at 9 points rather than waiting for 10 points. So we do this just for more survivability. After this, with Japanese carriers, you want proximity fuse and you want this is kind of, you can do this or you can go with the 2 torpedo skills. Either one works, or I guess you could do repair specialist, but that's really up to you. So without any further ado, let's hop into battle. Now, as you can see, I'm running this random. I actually had a couple videos where I was running this. The first one actually ended up in defeat, even though I did more damage. It's probably because the team didn't do as well in the first game that I had recorded. But yeah, no, because Hermes was originally, you either take cruiser or battleship. You could not take carriers in the original version of Hermes. So it was never optimized for carriers. It was never optimized for the AA is just too strong for carriers in most sections. So what we do here is we're putting the fighters out, and we're doing this so that the fighters actually have time to latch on and do some damage before they get to this fleet. And then we came back to our ship to reinforce AA, getting some more AA. And the reinforce AA on carriers is actually a pretty short cooldown, so you can use it a lot if you want. If not, the other thing you're doing is launching fighters and bringing fighters. We're using the upgraded air rockets on Shokaku because the upgraded rockets actually do something. Oh, the stock rockets. The stock rocket planes are the same rocket planes on Kaga, but because it's a flight of 2 and each plane has 4 rockets, so you only get 8 rockets. And whereas with the upgrade, you get 3 planes, and each plane gets an additional rocket. So you're pretty much doubling the amount of damage you can do with rocket planes. So it's a big jump between the two. As you can see here, I miss. I timed it right, I just didn't have the up-down right. Oh man, I miss the days when you could just point and click and you didn't have to lead so much. All this leading is, yeah. Or if you could curve the lead. That would be nice, rather than it having to be a straight. But yeah, we're using the rockets because we don't really care if they get shot down. And then here we have fighters latched on. Take down 2 of ours, but we bring it over to our allies so that they can get some plane kills. As you see, we're at half speed. We're probably going to want to go to full speed here shortly for our carrier. So I'll be marking stuff on the waypoints on the map. And for on Shokaku, the main damage dealers are actually both the torpedoes and the bombs. They both do a lot of damage. The torpedoes, you have a large squadron, which is both good and bad, because you only launch 2 at a time, but you can do multiple runs. The downside is, well, you have a large squadron, so flak can do a lot of damage to them, and you can lose a lot of planes very quickly. And so here we are, we're kind of flying around. I don't actually quite have the timing. Let's say here we are, we're going to move up. I should have done that earlier. I don't actually have the timing down for these Hermes as well. Especially since the battleships, if you go close to them, you can spawn them early. So if you want to spawn them early, that is a way to do it. I don't recommend it, but you can do it. So here we are, we're just trying to guesstimate. And we get some ghost tracers from one of the down ships, and then all of a sudden they all spawn underneath my planes. And those 4 battleships have so much AA. So much AA that it's not even funny how much AA that they have. I don't even want to bring... See, these are tier 7 planes. I don't even want to bring them over to those ships, because that would probably just wipe the squadron. Again, Hermes is not optimized for AA because you originally couldn't take them. So one thing, and I was also listening to an audiobook while doing this, so my mind isn't entirely on the game. One thing you can do is pre-drop, so that you have less planes going in. The other thing you do is with torpedo planes, especially the Russian, the ones on Graf Zeppelin and Japanese ones, you can launch them from far away, or use islands like this to provide cover, so that you aren't in AA. And then the other last thing you do is you can use heal to try and mitigate the AA damage. As you see, I kind of launched them as if they were the slow torpedoes that Graf Zeppelin and the Russian planes have, so they really didn't hit anything. The Japanese ones are much faster, so it makes aiming a little harder. So now that we see the bombers coming in from the south, we know to go take our planes up north, because the first wave will come in south, and then the next 4 waves of planes will come up from the north. And the sooner we drop our fighters to intercept those planes, the more that they can shoot down before they reach our allied ships. So we just want all 3 planes out. And it doesn't really matter which order, we just want all 3 out to try and intercept as many of these as possible. And so we already got a full 5. And here we are with our 3rd squadron, bringing it up a little bit to try and catch the last group. And do we reinforce? Did I remember to reinforce? No, I forgot to reinforce. Oh well. So as you can see, we have a cooldown right here. Right now there's a bug, so that even if the fighters return to base, if the full cooldown hasn't gone through, or you don't have the planes up while they're returning to base, then the full active duration time goes through until you can launch another plane. So what you do is either you let one go, you place a fighter, and then you keep flying around and let its duration go through. And so in randoms, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect anything except for maybe burn. But for these modes where you go like this and you can actually place multiple fighters really quickly, it hinders how quickly you can place fighters. And you see, with a full squadron, we only got one. That's because the 3 destroyers actually have good AA, and German ships have really good AA. So here we are, we're moving ahead. As this is all, and the enemy ships are German ships, that's a lot of really, really good AA. I say really good. Of the Axis ships, the German ships have the best AA. Which makes sense considering how much they had to AA they had to shoot down, well, planes they had to shoot down. And there we go, we are reinforcing too. So you notice our fighters are actually doing stuff and taking down the planes. And the reason why the fighters are actually so effective here is because these planes have so much HP that actual AA damage is negligible. But fighters don't do a DPS. Fighters do damage based on the HP of the plane. So a fighter against these does a lot more damage than to say a tier 4. Because if they were going, if I was going up against a tier 4 plane, they would do 5 planes worth of HP, which is very little on tier 4 planes. But on these planes, they have a lot of HP, so the planes, the fighter planes do a lot of damage. And now we see that we have lost 2 battleships. Not sure how, but yeah, we've lost 2 battleships. Someone could say in the comments how the battleships died. And even when there's a lone ship, a lone Bayern, Bayern still has, in this case, buffed AA, because I'm in a tier 8 ship and this was originally a tier 7 op. And with the plane spotting my ship, the enemy is shooting because I'm now the closest one to the enemy. Now this is fine because our job is to protect Rouen, and you know, even with 10% HP, we can still launch planes. If we're on fire, we can still launch planes. I used to like that, because that was a little bit more realistic. If a carrier was on fire, they couldn't launch planes. Frustrating, maybe, if you get set on fire a lot, but it was still realistic and interesting. But yeah, you know, the whole point of the AA rework and the other with the carrier rework was to not have a single ship be a no-fly zone, like in Atlanta used to be a no-fly zone. Minotaur used to be a no-fly zone. They took away that because they didn't want that. Now, even now, Holland kind of is that again. I mean, the super ship is kind of a no-fly zone now, if you build into it. But the whole point was to have multiple ships mean a no-fly zone. And so if you have multiple ships with overlapping AA, that becomes a no-fly zone. Well, again, this op wasn't optimized for that, so pretty much it's a no-fly zone. Where the enemies are, which makes doing damage difficult. So here we are, we're using the edge of the border to dodge planes. We also came up here just in case the destroyers came up early. And so I launched planes just to launch fighters. Going back to reinforce AA. because I am the AA here. Even though this is an A-hull, and so it's not the best AA. And so now we're going to go focus on these destroyers. Because these destroyers are the... if these destroyers don't die, you lose, basically. Well, turns out only one of them made it up. The other two got hung up on the carrier. So this probably... That luck right there of them getting hung up on the carrier probably helped us. And so I recalled my planes because they were getting too close to the carrier, and that's a lot being shot down. And I launched those torpedoes towards the carrier, but the carrier probably saw them or something and sped up. Which is fine because it sped up towards our allied group of ships. And here we go. You see just how much AA even a couple destroyers do. And so we're not doing much damage. What we're doing is focusing on destroyers because they're the dangerous ones. 1 and 2, they provide more XP per damage. Oh, I missed that one. Oh well. And of course the destroyers smoke up the carrier. So what we're going to do is we're going to try a blind right about there. Maybe it'll get something. And we do indeed get a single rocket hit. But by this time, the Ruon's already out, and we can't get the carrier. So you see, we don't even have enough time to dive bomb this cruiser. So it's a 3-star victory. We only did 45,000 damage, but because we were focusing on taking out aircraft. And as you see, we didn't even do that. The Allende and the Talon with their really good AA also did really well with taking out enemy aircraft. But it actually might be because of us. That because what we had what's that, 300,000? That's a little bit more than an AA. That's actually pretty good for AA damage. That's on the higher end of AA. For Massachusetts, could probably get around there. Usually, so an American battleship, an American AA cruiser with Def AA going, they can probably get around there. So a carrier going around there is it's actually on the lower end. Allende also, if it's brought Def AA, that could also make sure that it gets that high. I think I run Def AA, not Hydro, on my Allende because the Hydro is only 3 kilometers and it has such a long cooldown and short duration that it doesn't feel worth it. Whereas Def AA kind of feels worth it, but it's also balanced around the gimmick. Anyways, that's Allende. But as you can see, it's a lot of fighter play for this one, and honestly, the support carriers probably would do a lot better in Hermes, not only with their fighters, but like being able to launch mines. I'll have those all 4 of those battleships going through a minefield. That could actually be a decent amount of damage. With the ships not spawning for a while, or like their teleport spawning, if you can get those bombs into position, that might be a good thing, and that might actually allow a carrier to get damage. But as is, Hermes is really badly designed ops, and like Burn with its good fighters is probably one of the few good ones for this op. In fact, I would say Burn is the best carrier for Hermes. Which makes sense since it's a French carrier and it was French battleships and Allied cruisers. Anyways, if you want to have comments, if you have comments or didn't like the video or you liked the video, let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. If you want to see a specific ship or you want to see me challenge something, go ahead, write in the comments. I'll work on a video for it. If you want a specific route, a specific op, or want to see me comment on something, also let me know in the comments. I'm very amenable to requests. With that, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more videos. If not, that's up to you. But I do hope to see you again next week. Have a good one.